Jill Barnett Kaufman is a therapist, divorce coach, author, and co-parenting expert. Her personal experience with a difficult divorce led her to this work. Jill's online course and her transformative coaching program called Thriving Through Divorce helps parents with the full spectrum of divorce-related issues, from the initial decision to separate through co-parenting while divorcing and getting to a signed agreement. Welcome, divorce coach Jill.
Thanks so much for having me, Tracy.
I am so excited to talk with you today because money, co-parenting, always huge issues, no matter where you are, whether you're thinking about divorce, in the process of it, or even have a finalized divorce agreement and you're trying to co-parent together, money issues always come up. So I wanted to start with talking about your personal divorce experience because I think it is so helpful to know the perspective that an expert is coming from. What would you be willing to share with us?
Oh, absolutely. So my divorce experience was it was kind of high conflict. We have three children together. My ex was is a financial advisor, so money issues were very important, to both of us, I guess, most people. Um, But, he was an expert in that area, so, he was very knowledgeable, and, um, I I knew that this would be a very important thing to him. So, um, I probably knew more than my attorney knew, and, she was trying to get me to ask for a certain amount, alimony, child support, whatever, and, I I kind of knew that that wasn't gonna fly with him because, and so I ended up, working through it with him separately because we tried with the attorneys and we didn't really get anywhere, and I felt like we were probably gonna end up in court if I wasn't as flexible as I was. And so, my attorney ended up telling me that, I shouldn't be doing this deal. And, it wasn't terrible for me financially, but she felt I could have gotten more. And so I, I I was very happy with the what I ended up with, over 10 years later, I'm fine with it because I didn't end up in court. Like we really could have been, it was high conflict for a while and we could have been in court and I just didn't want to do that to myself or my kids or anybody. So, that was my story with it, but a lot more details, obviously, that I am not going to go into.
I think it's always a fine line that you have to walk and balance between standing up for yourself and knowing what the law says that you're entitled to and having some flexibility to keep it out of court and to try to keep that good relationship for the sake of the children, for the sake of the situation going forward. Is that kind of where you felt yourself?
Absolutely, and, it really is important. The relationship is important because what happens in the divorce and what happens in the agreement affects your future. So, if you do have a high conflict, you can come back from it, and we do have a good relationship now. But, it's hard to do that if you are fighting and if you go to court especially.
Sure, sure. So you're a licensed therapist and you are trained as a divorce mediator. I want to know what kind of therapy practice you had before you started focusing on divorce.
So I did a lot of marriage counseling. I did a lot of work with kids. Parenting was one of my area of expertise. And once I went through my own divorce, that's when I really was like, this is horrible, and I need to help others not have it as horrible. So I really wanted to work with people going through divorce to help them not have it that bad. So, um, and we ended up using a mediator, and like I said, we got through a lot of it in mediation, but we ended up doing it ourselves when the final thing that we couldn't get through mediation. So, it's an interesting process, and I think my therapy background is really helpful because I really understand the emotional piece of all of this.
Your experience can lend a lot to the process and helping other people process through their emotions, their issues, etc. in the divorce. Okay, so we like to focus here on money issues. And you probably are very well aware, as I am keenly aware, that for women in divorce, the money issues are often amplified. And in a very large percentage of divorces, the women are coming out with a more difficult financial situation than their husbands. And that, of course, impacts the kids. When a mom is just struggling to pay the bills and put food on the table, how can she be focused on protecting her kids from the money issues and the money fears?
That is such an important question because kids, like, even if you don't talk to your kids about things, they hear things. They hear you on the phone talking to somebody, or they see some paper that, is on your desk. And, it's very hard to protect children by not letting them, know anything. So, you really have to be careful when the kids are in the house and you're on the phone, or you have some kind of paperwork that is related to the divorce or finances, because children will take on that anxiety. So anything that they know that you're worried about, or that it's tight paying bills, they will become anxious, if they think that you don't have it all under control. And so a lot of my clients are like, "Well, I don't want to lie to my children." Well, you're not really lying. You're just not telling them things that they're not supposed to know. They're not supposed to be worried when you're a child about how you're going to pay the bills. You're not supposed to be worried about whether mom or dad is paying the right amount. You know what I mean? So it's really something that you have to be careful anytime that you're talking or thinking or working on any kind of financial situation, when the kids are around. And so, obviously we all make mistakes, and by accident we'll say something or do something where the kids will find out. You just want to reassure them that, you know what, I have it under control. I'm taking care of it. You don't have to worry about this. This is fine. So if you reassure them that everything's okay, even if you're not 100% sure everything's okay, you can't tell them that, I'm really worried how I'm going to pay, the rent next month, because then they will take that on, and it will create a lot of stress, and it's hard to undo that.
So, can you sort of soft sell it to them when you are worried about paying the rent next month? Can you say, you know what? I'm working through some of the budgeting issues right now, and I don't know exactly how they're all going to shake out, but I think I got it under control. Is that an okay way? Or does that create more questions?
Yeah, it's better, but it's okay. But better would be to, like, I'm figuring it out. You don't have to worry about it. I got it under control. Like, it's not.
Right.
You really don't want to let them think that there's any that you're really stressed about it.
Right.
Like, and if you are upset, like, sometimes it's hard not to show that to your children. You don't have to say it's because of money. Do you know? You could say, I'm
Right.
just emotional right now, and I'm gonna be okay. Because you can't be a zombie. You're going to show emotions to your children, and that's okay. But you don't have to say it's finance related, or it's because I'm so sad about losing your dad or mom or whatever it is. You know what I mean? You don't have to
Yeah.
tell them specifically about it. You could just say, I'm just struggling with some emotional stuff, but I'm going to be okay. Everybody gets sad sometimes, so you want to normalize it.
I think it is really important to not bring kids into adult issues and to try to shield them from it. And I think that's where a lot of situations of divorce encounter problems because the kids are being asked to pass information, or the kids are being questioned about things, or the kids are being told things they have no business knowing. But what happens? Your mom and your kid comes home and says, Dad says he has no money to take me anywhere because he gives all his money to you every month. Dad has brought the child into the issues. What does
Yeah.
mom do?
Yeah. No, and that happens a lot. One parent will do that and the other parent doesn't know what to do. Um, so this is complicated. Like, I would definitely explain to your child, you know what they're telling you is not really what we're not supposed to really tell you anything about the financial situation. And if either of us, and you want to say it's about both parents, if either of us say anything about the financial situation, you need to tell us, you know, you're not supposed to talk about that with me. So you're teaching the child how to set boundaries with each parent. And if you say it like, I could do that too, then it's not like, oh, your father's bad. It's like, oh, I get it. Sometimes we make a mistake, but you got to tell us not to say that, to you.
Sure. Okay, I love those techniques. But so you do that, and let's say you've got a 13-year-old kid, and the kid is really upset because the kid believes you took dad's retirement account or you took the house away from dad. That has to be addressed, right?
Yes, and that's the complicated part, and I'm glad you brought that up. So, what you need to tell the child is, you know what? There are two sides to every story, okay? So, you're just hearing one side, which you shouldn't be hearing, but you're not going to hear the other side from me because you shouldn't be hearing it. And there you don't have the whole picture, and you shouldn't. But there is another side to it. Um, you know, as children get older, you know, you may wanna tell them a little bit more detail, but, like your dad has plenty of money. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to worry about your dad. If they're like 16, 17, 18, maybe you can start saying those kinds of things. Um, but, this is really not good for children, and what I would suggest is you get a therapist involved so that the child can talk to the therapist and the therapist can have like a session with the father or the mother, whoever's doing it with them, and the child so that they understand that, they're making them feel bad about this.
What can parents safely share with their children about the money? I think you've kind of generally talked about it, but I mean, is it okay to talk about, well, child support is often paid in cases and that's to help, cover the cost of your clothes and your food, or is that like going way too much into stuff that the kids don't need to know?
I mean, I think that you can explain that, if they know that, you know, one parent is paying the other parent, you can say, well, that's what happens, when you get divorced because one of the parents is making more than the other. And you can kind of explain that if you have to. Um, but, honestly, they shouldn't really be asking anything about that because, that's not good for children to know that. You want to teach them about money for themselves, right? You want to give them an allowance and have them do chores and earn money and kind of understand money. But divorce and finances is complicated. They
Right.
don't really need to know. I mean, if I know a lot of clients who are like, their other parent won't agree to sign them up for an extracurricular activity. And I've asked them and they won't ask. And you can say, well, why don't you talk to your dad and tell them how important this is to you? And, they'll hopefully agree. So that kind of thing, when it has to do with them and you really don't have any other choice. If they say, I really want to do this so I've had parents who are like, "Well, I'm just gonna pay for it. I'm not even gonna get them in the middle." But some parents can't do that, So if you really have to get the other parent involved because you can't afford to pay for the whole thing, then, you might have to get them involved. But ideally, you wouldn't want them involved.
One of the things that comes up a lot with the women I work with is Disney dad, where dad is making a lot more money. He buys all the toys, he takes them to the amusement park or on the vacation, he buys them the name brand clothes. And these women are often struggling just to make ends meet. How can mom address this?
That is a really hard thing because what I would say is be glad that your children's father has a relationship with them. And, Disney dad is going to have a different relationship than the person who's there doing all the hard work, right? So you're the person who's there every day, getting them to school, helping them with their homework, and doing all the things that are really necessary. That's a different relationship. And you shouldn't be jealous of this other relationship because it's not as comfortable, it's not as close as, the person who's doing all the nitty-gritty details of raising children, right? So if a father sees them every other weekend and is just, maybe doesn't know how to connect with them in any other way other than, taking them out to and buying them things. And it's good. I really believe that children benefit from a relationship with both parents, and it's going to be a different kind of relationship with each parent. And just, you know, let your child enjoy whatever they enjoy with the other parent, and it's not a competition.
I've heard that advice before of trying to reframe it for yourself to be grateful that your child has the ability to have that experience versus feeling resentful that you're not able to provide that experience. But I will say, reframing it for yourself that way is a lot easier said than done, isn't it?
It's so much easier said than done, and we all get like, I shared 50-50 custody, and I was before the divorce, I was doing most of the, childcare and everything with the children. So I was like, now when the kids are like 13 and up, he wants to help. What about all those years when I did everything? And you know what? I had to get over that. I had to get over because he did step up and my kids have a good relationship with him and that's good for them, So we just have to, bite our tongues and realize that being a parent is not easy and it's not about us. And we just have to appreciate, the relationship we have with our children and try not to think about it the other way. But I agree with you. It's much easier said than done.
It's so interesting because I've been involved in so many divorces where dad has been largely an absentee parent, often because of work and whatever schedule comes along with that. And I'm not criticizing that because circumstances just are what they are. But then I see that after the divorce and when there's 50-50 parenting time, you all of a sudden have this dad that the kids have never experienced before. And if there's something good that can come out of divorce, oh my gosh, these kids are getting to spend time with their dad that they probably never would have been able to otherwise.
Yes, and guess what? You get time to yourself. And I have to say, after I got over the initial, being upset when my kids weren't in my house, I really enjoyed my own time and have my own life. And, I wouldn't trade that.
Okay, so if the kids are worried about money for whatever reason during or after the divorce, do you have some tips for how to handle that?
Yes. So, you look for anxiety. Anxiety comes up when they express fears. So, are you going to be able to afford, food? Am I going to be able to, um, go to camp this summer or whatever it is? Like, if they start asking questions about what their life is going to be like that is a real, tip that your child's hearing something or experiencing something that is creating anxiety. So, you really want to, let them talk it out. So, you ask a lot of questions. "Why are you feeling that way? What's going on for you? Did something happen? You know, what are you most worried about?" So you wanna ask open-ended questions to find out where this is all coming from. Like, did they hear something or maybe a friend said something or maybe they saw something on the internet or TV, you never know where it comes from. So ask about where it comes from and then you want to um ask them like what are you really worried about? What's the worst thing that could happen? Like and let them express like they're really cuz they're not always worried about the thing they ask about. They may really worried about well maybe you're going to move away or something. You're going to move in with grandma and grandpa and now we won't be able to be in this area. Who knows what it is? Um, so you really want to find out what the root of the issue is. And if you can't find that out, then get a therapist involved and get the therapist to help, talk to the child and help and get that worked out. Because there's a lot of really good tools that therapists have, like drawing is really therapeutic. You can also tell your child you want to draw how you feel. That's a really good thing. And but we're not most moms are not experts in working with children and their emotional issues. So if you are struggling and you can't just get it out yourself, don't hesitate to go to a therapist who specializes in children and anxiety. And there's a lot of those out there.
I can just see how a co-parenting coach, a divorce coach who focuses on co-parenting could be so key in the divorce process and afterward, because I think that there's constantly things coming up with the kids that mom is saying, "Oh my gosh, how do I handle this?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I work with a ton of people as, the two parents together on how they communicate about it because if they've never gone to therapy or been trained in this, they're not going to know what's okay and what's not okay. And they're going to each have their own opinion. And so, getting people on the same page is having a professional tell them, well, this is okay, this really isn't, is really helpful because it's not like you're telling each other, and then those same dynamics happen from when you were married where one person thinks they, are being told what to do by the other, and they're not open to it. So having a co-parenting coach would be really helpful.
Well, especially I think if you are not aligned on money issues and how to handle the money, that seems like it could be extra helpful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And money is one of the biggest issues people fight about, right? There's lots of parenting issues and things like that, but money is a huge issue that people argue about. And post divorce, you know, there's tons of things to argue.
Well, if we aren't aligned on the money, how can we talk to the children about that in a way that is not high conflict?
I think that I think that each parent is allowed to have different points of view on money, and children have to learn that's okay. When and then tact families that happens, like mom or dad is okay with one thing and mom is not, so um you can say that we just disagree on what you should do with this whatever it is, with this summer camp or this tutor or whatever it is that you're spending money on. I really feel like you should do this, and he feels you should do that. We're going to compromise and make sure that you get whatever it is. Or maybe the child has to choose and say, you know what, I really want to go to this summer camp and let the child choose it. So as long as you're doing it in a productive way, you can have different opinions, and that's okay.
Right. Or it might be a scenario where at dad's house, you're required to do chores to earn your allowance. And at my house, you get an allowance whether or not you do chores. And that's okay that it's different at both houses.
Absolutely. It's absolutely okay because children understand very quickly how different it is at both houses. Even if you're trying to do things aligned, it doesn't always work that way.
This has been so insightful. I know that you have a free resource that is available to our listeners. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I have an 8 guidelines for separated and divorcing parents, and it goes into a little bit about this, but also just in terms of, in general, how to divorce and protect children, and it's a great resource.
I think especially if you are new to the divorce process, that sounds like something that's kind of going to set you on the right path towards some more clarity and being aware of what to look out for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've never been through this before. So we don't really have a lot of knowledge. And if you look on the internet, you're not going to always get the right answers. So be careful where you're getting your information from and try your best. But it's hard.
We're all just trying to do our best. I'm going to link to 8 guidelines for separated and divorcing parents in the show notes. Tell us where people can find you, divorce coach Jill.
Awesome. Thank you. So my website is divorcecoachjill.com. And I have a Facebook group. It's called Separated and Divorce Support Community. It's on Facebook. Instagram is at Divorce Coach Jill.
That's awesome. Thank you again for being here. Such valuable tips today. It was great talking with you.
Thank you, Tracy, so much. It was so much fun.